So we will start with the coding. The first step is to do the basic installation. So the first thing we need is our React template and also our tailwind. Once this installation is done, which is our step 1, the step 2 would be to do a whiteboarding exercise. Now why this whiteboarding exercise is important? Because we need to visualize that how our app is gonna look. So on whiteboard, first we are gonna do a visualization, and then we are gonna break down that design into components, so that we know that how many components we have to build. And also when we are building our application, we can go or refer again to our designs on this whiteboard, that how the data flow would be. So this whiteboarding exercise is very important for visualization, components and data flow. Okay, once this is done, then we will start doing the coding part. In the coding, the first step would be we will be creating the components. Then those components, once they are created, then we will assemble them, or in React's language we call it composition, that we are gonna have or get all the components together to build our UI. And then what we are gonna do is we are gonna do our API request to get the data. Once we have the data, then we are gonna create the UI to again create our whole application. Okay, so once this is done, then what we are going to do is we are going to add our features such like search or pagination. All these we are going to start adding, and as required we will be going back to our design and we will see what all features we can add there. And while we are doing our code part, in between we will see that where we can do the styling part also. And at the end we will be spending a good amount of time in doing the styling part. So this is what we are gonna do. So first step is to start with the installation. So we are gonna do it for React. If you will go to the Vite site, in their guide you will find this section, and this is the command which I am using. But instead of Vue, I am using React. I already have the folder ready, so I don't need to give the name. But if you don't have the folder ready and you want to create the folder also while you are doing the installation, you can change the name of this my Vue app with your folder name. So I will just copy this command and let's start with the installation. Okay, so this is done. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do npm install, because there is no node modules, so we need node modules. So let's do that. It will take some time, so let's wait. Perfect. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run it on our local. So we got the local host. Let's see it is running or not. Yep, perfectly. Now we will install our tailwind. You can go on the tailwind website, click on docs, go to the framework guides, and this is the one. Now here the first step we don't need to do because we already have our project. We can straightly go to the second step where we are installing tailwind. Let me go back to my VS Code and I will start a new terminal. Once this installation will be done, it will generate a config file here on in our files. You can see it is here, tailwind config. This is what we need. On third step, we can copy this from their website, the configuration, and paste in the VS Code. Okay, perfect. This is done. Now let's go to the fourth step. We need to copy these classes, this code, and put it in our index.css file. So let's open index.css. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it on the top here. Okay, perfect. And that's it. This is all what we need to do to install our tailwind. I will delete it, delete the terminal which I opened, and if you will see, these two steps are done. So we are good with the step 1. Now let's move to the step 2, where we are gonna talk about the whiteboarding or visualization, that how our app is gonna look. So I'm using a application TL Draw. So let's start doing some whiteboarding here. So let me start with this square box. So this is our application. What we can do is we can have a header, and let me write it here. This could be our header. So we can have a text here, and we can have a footer also. So footer. Below the header we can have a search bar where we can do the searching. So we can have search. We can have all our cards coming here. So these cards can come in a grid like this. We will see when we will reach to the API, when we will do the API call, and at that time we will see that how our card UI would be, that how we are gonna show or arrange our data within this card. But as of now, this would be the card. There would be a grid of card, and then we can have pagination. So for pagination we can have next, previous, and in between. So this would be our previous, and this would be our next, and in between we can have like page 1 of 10, something like that. So it's 1 of 10, something like this. So this is a high level UI for us. It's a good start for us to at least have a visualization that how our UI is gonna look. Okay, and second thing is it will help us to decide that what all components we have to build. So now let's talk about the components. So you can see that this is the first one. So this would be our header component. So I will write header here. So this is our first one. Similarly, we will have a footer component. So it will come here. Then we will have a input component here, which will be our search, which will act for as a search. Then we will have a card list here, cards list, and within card list we will have a component card, which will actually, every card will represent that component will be responsible for printing this each and every card. Okay, then we will talk about this component, pagination. So basically it's a button. So, and at high level, yes, it would be like pagination and basically button. Okay, so these are the components we require for this particular design, and all these components will get assembled like this whole page. That page we can call as a home. So that would be another one. So home. Now you can see the benefit of this exercise, that we have done a whiteboarding session. Even if you have design, I would highly encourage you to do a brainstorming session so that you can get an idea that how many components are required. When we will reach to the API request, we will come back to this design to talk about the data flow and all those things. But as of now, it's a good start. So let's go back to our VS Code, and you can see that we are done with visualization and components. So the next step is we need to start with the code. Now, because we know how many components we require, so what we can do is we can just go directly in our source, create a folder components, and start creating these files. So the first one is button. The second one is input. And I did a typo here. Let me correct it. Input. The third one is header.jsx. Next is our footer.jsx. Then we have cards list.jsx. And at the outside components, we are gonna assemble all our components. So our that page is not gonna know, I'm gonna name that as a home.jsx. Okay, so our components file are ready. Now what I'm gonna do is I will start, let me close everything. We don't need all this. Let's start with writing the code. So I will start with the header first. So const header. So header is ready. I will copy the same code, go to footer. Okay, footer is ready. I can close this. Now let's go to the input. I will paste this. So this is input, and this is a self-enclosing tag. Now let's talk about in input what all we require. We require a type, but this type will be this component is gonna be reusable, so we need type from a prop, as well as we need a placeholder. Again, this is gonna be reusable, so will come from props. And then we need event on change. So let me start giving the props name here. This will be change handler, this will be placeholder, this will be type, and we can have all these here: type, placeholder, change handler. Perfect. Now let's see one thing. You can see that there's a red line is coming, which represent there's a issue. Now let's try to understand that what this issue is. I will just zoom little bit. So you can see the error is type is missing in props validation. So because we are using Weed, and the good thing about this is it give us eslint by default configured, which is very good, which is missing from CRA, create React app. But the point is right now I am not doing the props validation. So what we can do? So there are different ways to fix this issue. I will start with from here like quick fix. When you will click on quick fix, you will see that it will give you three options: disable for this line, disable for entire file, show documentation for React prop types. So if you wanted to do quick fix, you can either select this, like for this line. The moment I will select, it will automatically generate generate this code eslint disable next line React prop type, so that this error can be gone. Okay, but I am not looking for a shortcut like this. I want to show you that how you can fix this. So you can go to eslint rc. Okay, and here you need to go here, rules, and you must be having an object here. Now after this you need to do React. I will show you from where you can get this property name. So this is React prop types. So what you can do is you can go to the documentation, you can click, and you can, I'm just showing you that how you can grab this. So this is the quick React prop types. Now go back to your eslint rc, put it here, remove the double quotes, and what we want it to be off. I don't want any warning or anything, I just want off. The moment I did that, you can see that those red lines are gone. Okay, so this is how you do it. Perfect. So now our input is ready. I will close this and I will adjust the font. Now the next component we have is button. So let's go to button. I will delete rest of the stuff till here, and I will, this is a closing tag. Now what are the props we require? The first thing is definitely we need the button label, and we need click handler on click. So it would be a click handler, so it will come here. We can have this here, button label here. Perfect. So button is ready, footer is ready, header is ready, input is ready. I'm not touching card or card list. We will reach here when we will do the API request. So let's go to our home and start collecting these components to create our some page, like not the perfect one, but yeah, something. So the first thing is const home return, I will just put section as of now, and export default home. Now let's start importing. So we need header from components, header, we need footer, we need input, we need button. So I can do it very quickly. Footer, this will come from footer, input will come from input, and our button will come from button. Okay, now let's start assembling these. So we can have header directly, we can have footer directly, we can have input, but we need to pass input few props, input type search, placeholder type your character, and then we need a change handler. As of now I will just leave it blank because we are going to write the code for this. And then we can have button we will have next as of now. And what else we need? We need a click handler, so again I will leave it blank as of now. Perfect. Now we will use this home in our app.js, so I will delete all this. I will delete everything. These all things are not required. I will import home from home. We will come here, paste it. In fact, I don't need this also. I can do a single line return. Let me format this page. Let's go back and see what is happening. So you can see our header is coming, input is coming, footer is coming. Though the UI is not great, which is fine, we are gonna work on it, but it's looking fine. Now let's spend some time on the UI first, so that it start looking a little bit better. So first thing what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove all this CSS. Okay, so I'm gonna empty this CSS, and we have app index CSS also. In index CSS I'm gonna delete I will delete till here, h1 to this one. Okay, and also I don't need display flex on my body. So you can see this is how it is looking. I deleted from where the background is coming from here, so I will just remove this. Okay, so our text is coming white. I will just change this also. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so let's start doing the styling part. Now we are using tailwind, so we can take the advantage of that. Let's start with the header. So this is our header. We can have class name, padding 4, bg black, font size text, basically we can have large. Let's see, this is not coming. Why it is not coming? Our CSS is not getting implemented. I can see that classes are here, but CSS is not getting implemented. Okay, let's see what happened. I think I have to restart it once again. So let me just restart it once again. Yep, it was just a restart issue. Okay, now I need the text to be white. Okay, text large, it is not taking, so let's do extra large if it can. I need to see. Yeah, it is okay, fine. And padding we have given vertical. I want perfect, good. Okay, now this is done, header is done. I will close it. Let's go to the button. Not button, let's go to the footer first. Let's start with footer. So here, class name, we are gonna do text small. Let's see, and we are gonna do text center so that it can be aligned center. Perfect. Okay, now let's close our header and our footer. For button right now I'm not doing any styling. Let's go to input and let's start adding some classes here. So first I will give padding, which will be padding 2. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do border 2. I'm gonna do rounded border also. So let's see what is happening. Perfect. And I'm gonna do border color, border black. Yep, this is coming. And I will do one more thing. From header I will do margin bottom. So margin bottom 4. Okay, and the width. So for, okay, one more thing, if you are wondering that how I remember all these classes, so I spent good amount of time with Tailwind, so few classes I already know, like margin, padding, whichever I use. Otherwise the good thing is just go and search on the documentation. Like you can see font size and small, large, extra large, you can get it like this. Right now I wanted to do the width part, so I can just search for width, and you can see fixed width. This is the fixed width. It requires a number, and these are the numbers you can use. So I can use W96. So let's go here on input and say W96. Let's go back to our, so it is not taking 100%, but we can fix it. We need to give the container width also, which we haven't. So we will put the container width and then we can do that. Okay, so this is how you can do it. And see, this is W full. So let's go and do it W full. So this is coming, but we need to fix few things like container width and all that. We will do it later, but you can see that the CSS part is coming together. Okay, fine. Now what we need to do is, let's go back to our steps. So components are done, assembling is done. Now we need to do the API request. Now the thing is, from where we need to do the API request, how everything is gonna work. So we are gonna use our whiteboarding for that. So this is our home. So I can move it like this now. Sorry. So this is our home. Now this is our one of the component. We are gonna type here, and this data should get created here. So what we can do is, either we can create a separate component which will be responsible for generating all this, but API request will happen from our home. So what we are gonna do is, we are gonna do a API request at our home, because this is our parent component. All our data should be there, and also the search is also at home, our home component. So from here, whenever we are doing any search, we need to take care of that event also. So at our home, we are gonna do API request. That data will go to our cards list, which will be an independent component. From there, it will go to card to generate this UI. So card list will be called here on our home. And when we are gonna do a search, that search will be responsible to filter this data. So the search term, the whatever we are gonna type, that will again flow down to our card list. We will talk about all this as we will move ahead. But the first thing first, we are gonna do the API request for our this component. So let me close files again, and let's go to home. And the first thing, because I know I'm gonna do a API request, so what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna import few things from React, which is import use state, use effect from React. Use effect we require to do API request, and use state we require to manage the state. So that's why. So the first state we are gonna manage is characters, set characters equals to use state. Okay. Now what we are gonna do is, we are gonna write a method get characters. This will be responsible for the API request. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna do a try and catch. So if there would be any error, it will come here, and this will be a async. So let me write async, and we are gonna use fetch. So what we are gonna do is, we are gonna do const data equals to await fetch and our API, and then we are gonna write response equals to await data.json. Okay, now after this what we are gonna do is I'm gonna put a console here to see what we are getting. Now let's go back to our documentation, get this endpoint, come here and put it like this. Okay, now where we are gonna call this method, we are gonna use effect for this. So we are gonna come here, use effect, and I'm gonna call this method here, and also in dependency I'm gonna put blank array. If you doesn't know about use effect, I already made a video on that, so you can go, I will put a description link in the description box, you can check that. The only thing is that is in Hindi, so if you know Hindi then it would be very easy for you to watch. Okay, let's go back here, let's go to console, refresh, and you can see our data is coming. So in result we are getting our data. So all we need to do now is take this state, come here and put response dot results. Okay, so now all the data which we are getting from our API will be available in characters, so which is good, we are able to do our API request. But now we need to work on our cards list. Why this is card, it should be cards list. Wait, okay, now let's create this component, because this component will be responsible to take the data and create our cards. So we will have a UL here, and in the UL we will have LIs, but instead of LI I will create an independent component card. So card will come here, which we haven't created. We will wait a minute and we will do export default, and we will have data here. Let me see what is the name, characters, so we will use the same. Let's come here, characters. I'm gonna copy this, paste it here, name it card, and instead of ULLI we are gonna get LI, and just for testing purpose I will just do H1, and I'm gonna do character dot name, and it is not characters now, it is just one character, and this would be card. Let's go back here. So this is character, prop name, and characters here. Okay, let's go here and we are gonna name it, sorry, we are gonna import it, I'm really sorry, card from card. Let's come here, import our card list, cards list. Now this card list will come before button, and we will pass this data. So now you can see how the data will flow. So we did a API request first, then that API data will go to card list, which is here. Now this data will be used in our card. This is the card, so it will take that data and it will print it. It might not work, but let's see. Yep, I guessed it right. It was not gonna work. The reason is because we haven't did the looping mapping. So here what we have to do is const create card, and we need to do return, take this data card characters dot map character and now what we can do is we can take this and return here, this will go here, and this create cards we will call here, execute here. Also we need to a conditional check that only when the characters are there, then only this should work. I'm just removing ID for now. Why it is complaining? Let's see. Key is not there. So yeah, so we need to have this key equals to ID. Perfect. Now it will come, and yep, now you can see the data is coming. We just printed name and it is coming. Okay, so we are able to do our API call. We are able to do the creating, we are able to create the cards, but we haven't done the styling of cards. We still need to investigate our API data, that how we wanted to represent it. But before that, let me give you a quick summary of what we did here. If you missed out that what is happening, I can understand there were a lot of things. So what we did is, first we created a method get characters. This method's responsibility is only to do API request at our home page. So at home we created a method which will do API request. Okay, now this method we called in use effect. Now your question must be coming that cannot I write this function directly here? Yes, you can write it. You can write it, and you can, but the thing is, the best practice is that do not write the methods like this in the use effect. It is not recommended. So what you need to do is you can copy this code and then you can write it. So that's why I would suggest you write the code function like this separately, and then in use effect you can call like this. Okay, now in my API function, this is a async await I'm using because this is a API request. The data will come in future, so that's why. So I'm using fetch here. This is the API endpoint. Once I got the data, I'm converting into the JSON, not the data, but basically once I got the response. Now our data of our card is in response.result. How I know? Because I did a console of response, and in that I saw that it is in response.result. So you might have to do, if you are using any other API, my suggestion to you is always do a console to see how the data, where the data is coming. Okay, so this is done. Now I will use this, what I'm doing here in line number 15 is storing that data in a state, local state of my component. So this is what I'm doing here. So character is a state where I will be getting all my characters stored. Now once I have the data from my API, I have a component cards list which will take this data and will be responsible for creating the UI. So that's why I passed this characters. The prop name and the state name I kept same to avoid the confusion. Generally, when we are starting with the ReactJS, we try to keep the different names, but my suggestion to you is, if possible, keep it as close as what the data is representing, so that it would be easier for doing the communication between the developers, explaining the code, as well as when you are working with your code, it would be easier to understand. Now this card list will take this data. Now here in the card list component, I created a function which will the only responsibility of this is to go through the data map basically and generate the UI. Now for the card, I created a separate component. You can go ahead and you can do here also. So what you can do is you can just copy this code and paste it here. You can do that, but the good programming tip would be to create a separate component which will be responsible for your item. And this component is getting a key as a prop and character. So basically, instead of a lot of characters, we are just passing one by one character. Okay, and then in UL we are calling this function only when the characters are there. So if there won't be any character, this is not gonna call. So what we are doing is we are safeguarding our code. Otherwise what will happen is, if the characters won't be there and this function will get executed, which it will if I'm not gonna pass this condition, we will see an error on our UI. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here. Now in our card component, in props we receive one character, and all I am doing is just printing the name. That's it. This is what we are doing, and then that's why we are able to see this. Okay, so now let's go back to our steps, what we are supposed to do. So our API request is done. Now we are gonna look into the UI, that how we are gonna represent, how we are gonna design our card, what data we want to have there, and definitely gonna work on the styling part for the look and feel. And then what we are gonna do is we are gonna add the features, search, pagination, uh, and at the end again styling if required. Okay, so let's go and let's focus on our UI.